What happened to my little flower over here? It's all frozen. I can't eat this. Hey guys, I love this artwork. Hey guys, this is Gamer Cat. Welcome to another Pokemon trading card game history video. This time, my boy Absol's getting a good card again. It's been like Secret Wonders is the only other good Absol I can even remember, but this one, oh, he's good. Plasma Freeze, the second of our 3 Team Plasma sets, really actually brings the Plasma engine to the forefront, and this genuinely shows how dangerous this stuff can be. Last set was a bit of an interim, a bit of a really need stuff from the next one to do good, and this is the Worlds format, black and white through Plasma Freeze, so we'll be spending a little bit of time on the actual battle stuff here. And yeah, there's so much to look over. A lot of these cards really do actually stand out. There's a lot of bad stuff in every set, but like this one in particular has so much good that yeah, new archetypes just come up and will take over for quite a while. So yeah, now normally I would start with the trainers here, and I probably still should, but I think we've really got to go over the way that the Team Plasma engine actually works, or the Team Plasma deck as a core works in this set, because it really revolves around Thundurus, Deoxys, and Kyurem as the main stuff here. So let's go over those first, and then we can go over the rest of the stuff as we see fit, so we can get everything going. Thundurus EX is a 170 HP 2-prizer. It's lightning type. It is weak to fighting, even though it's, you know, electric flying. This is not the same as Zapdos apparently. It's only got a 1 energy retreat, which is kind of neat, but you don't generally play Sky Arrow Bridge because you're going to play Laser Verbank anyway, but that's still cool. And yeah, it just helps out for early game stuff as well. For 1 lightning energy, Raiden Knuckle does 30 damage, so 30 for 1, pretty decent conversion. Doesn't have the damage on the bench that Landorus does, but what it does instead is attaches any energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Team Plasma Pokemon. This is energy card, not basic energy. So the deck generally, you can play with basics, but the deck generally revolves around a lot of special energy. We have Prism Energy, we've got Blend Energy works with this in the Kyurem. Team Plasma Energy, of course, is also a thing, and is needed for acceleration purposes as well. So the deck goes hard. Goes extremely aggressive, and you can recycle energy that you Juniper away at the start of the game or something like that. So really powerful stuff there. Thunderous Noise doesn't usually come up, but sometimes it can if you've got DCE in the build. For 2 lightning and 2 colorless it does 90, which is not amazing. But if you are hitting Lugia specifically, that does knock it out without any issue, so I guess that's kind of cool. And if you do have a Team Plasma energy attached to the Thundurus, you discard an energy from the defending Pokemon. Not amazing, because, yeah, I mean, 2-hit KO with Disruption is pretty useful, but it's not going to come up very often. Usually you're using this in the early game. You can Raiden Knuckle with this deck for like 60 damage fairly easily with the laser stuff as well. Thunderous Noise just doesn't hit the numbers that you need it to. But, you know, if you've got the energy to spare, sometimes that 90 is what you want, so yeah. It gets boosted by Deoxys EX, another 170 HP, this time obviously Psychic type, because that's what Deoxys is. 2 energy to retreat, and its Power Connect is the main reason this gets used. Your Team Plasma Pokemon's attacks, excluding Deoxys EX, very important there, do 10 more damage to the active Pokemon. This stacks, so if you have 3 Deoxys on the bench, you do 30 extra damage with the rest of your Team Plasma guys. They are 2 prizes, they are difficult to retreat, they can be liabilities, but oh man, that damage stacks very quickly. Helix Force is always pretty strong as well. For 1 Psychic and 1 Colorless, it only does 30, which is not too impressive. But if it has any Team Plasma energy attached to it, it does 30 more for each energy attached to the defending Pokemon. Doesn't count your own energy, so it's not quite as ridiculous as Mewtwo, but is good against Mewtwo, because if they have a DCE attached, then your Helix Force does 180. 30 plus 60 for the 2 energy, times 2 for weakness. So the deck does play Prism Energy. You can attack with this, it's just not the preferred attacker, but it is possible. And then finally, the third part of the triad here is Kyurem. Some decks will focus very heavily on this, like the one Sai was piloting in our test stuff, and some of them just use this as an auxiliary piece, but it's pretty solid no matter which way around you go. 130 HP, it's a 1-prizer this time, so that's obviously very powerful for this sort of deck, considering EXs dominate most of it. 3 energy retreat cost, you could play Heavy Ball, you're probably not going to, but I suppose if you wanted to play this with Blastoise for some reason, it's a good 1-prize attacker in that deck, so you could play one of them in there, and yeah, that can be Heavy Ball searched, so not too bad. Force Spear for Water and Colorless does 30 and 30 to one of the opponent's bench. Where have I heard that one before? Yeah, this is a 1-prize Landorus that takes more energy to do it. It's fine, it hits Lando for weakness, so that's obviously very powerful for the deck, considering Thundurus gets hit for weakness by Lando. So yeah, it's a nice little balance that you have there. And then Blizzard Burn for 2 Water and a Colorless does 120, and then it can't attack next turn. 120 is decent numbers if you can manage to get 3 Deoxys and the Laser Verbank in play. That is a lot to ask, but not really from this deck, to be honest. If you get all of that, you can essentially do 180, and that does make it rather dangerous to go against. So yeah, and this Pokemon can't attack during your next turn thing goes away if this goes to the bench. So yeah, this just like eclipses Kyurem EX entirely. It's kind of hilarious actually, because it's a 1-prizer, it's 50 less HP sure, but it's a 1-prizer, it's got a better first attack, it's Plasma so you can Chorus Machine to it, and it has the same attack but for less energy, basically. Like yeah, you can't use either attack next turn, but we have ways around that now because Keldeo exists, so yeah. Really strong stuff. That's the core. You tech this with stuff like you can play Lugia, there's the Absol in here you can play as well, we'll get to that later, but it's like you've got Lugia that you can use with recycling plasma energy, is really solid. You can use it with the Tornadus that we'll get to in this set, you can use it with the Snorlax from the previous set. Yeah, but the core is the Thundurus, Deoxys, Kyurem stuff, and I think we really need to go over that first, just to show how potent this really is. Because if we don't go over that first, this whole set kind of loses a lot of context. So yeah. So, from there, we'll move on to our normal way round. We'll talk about the trainers first, the rest of the EXs, and then we'll go over the fun single prize stuff as well. Easily, the most impactful card from this set in terms of trainer cards is Floatstone. This tool card is what we've been waiting for the whole time. The Pokemon this card is attached to has no retreat cost. It's the same wording as Darkrai, so it will get around these reduce your retreat cost or do damage based on. You just do not have a retreat cost whilst this is on the Pokemon. Fantastic card for Garbodor, of course, because it means that the Garbodor then gets to retreat if it gets catched up. That's really powerful, but also just as a general pivot tool is really good. And it's fantastic on Keldeo. That's Keldeo. Keldeo plus Floatstone is a humongous thing in like any deck that doesn't have the opportunity to play Darkrai and put Dark Energy on Keldeo. Because now it's just like I play a to get Keldeo down, I put the Floatstone on it, I can rush in, I can retreat to when I need to. This is how you get the Kyurem to attack every single turn, and yeah, it's incredibly oppressive. Tool Scrapper is a solid answer. You're still going to usually get one good use out of this though by the time you attach the stone and then go from there. So yeah, but still really powerful and absolutely worth noting. Frozen City is an interesting counter stadium for the Plasma decks. Whenever a player attaches an energy from hand to one of his or her Pokemon that is not a Team Plasma Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So usually Laser Verbank is the way you go, but if you don't play Laser yourself, then this would be a way of being able to still do some extra damage, but it's more just countering Verbank City is the thing. And like Plasma Frigate could do it, but this is a much better card in general, because any deck that isn't using Team Plasma cards is going to suffer from this. Deoxys was a very controversial card when it came out, because if you look at the thing here, it's a rare holo. This was the first trainer that we had seen that wasn't like an A-Spec or something. This was the first trainer since like Gen 2, I think, that was actually like above uncommon. And it's a pretty devastating one too, if it works. The opponent reveals their hand and shuffles all item cards found there into the deck. You then get to draw a number of cards equal to the number of items that were shuffled back into their deck. So I think this is actually banned and expanded, or at least it was. Maybe it's not now, but with the new supporter rules and stuff. But it was at one point banned and expanded, if it isn't still. And the reason is because it just like deletes certain games, right? If you get this going first and the opponent doesn't have a supporter in their hand, they are hosed, right? This punishes decks that play several random receiver, I suppose, as their main draw thing. It's pretty good against Sableye. So there's definitely like reasons to play this card, but it is not something you can rely on as your main supporter for draw, because if the opponent doesn't have any items in their hand, then you don't get to draw any cards. And if you don't get to draw any cards, your setup doesn't work as well, so you really need to be like a low to the ground sort of deck for this to be at its peak. But oh man, if it works, it is the most obnoxious thing in the world. So yeah, I would expect to see it at some point, but just don't consider it a full staple. But people read this and were like, this card is the greatest thing that ever existed. And when it came out as a holo, people were really annoyed at that. And me too, actually. I was kind of annoyed, like, opening this set, going, man, you know, I have to get this thing as a holo. That's not gonna happen. Nowadays, we've got stuff like Professor's Research is in that slot, and it's kind of annoying, right? But that boss's orders, etc. But you know, this was new back in the day, and it was not well received. So yeah. Shadow Triad is another supporter card that's in... Oh, I should have mentioned, guess this is also Team Plasma designation if you want to do the grunt thing as well. Shadow Triad lets you take a Team Plasma card from your discard pile into your hand. So this can recover plasma energy, that's usually what it's used for, but you can use it to recover plasma Pokemon if you need to as well, or Hypnotoxic Laser, stuff like that. It could be just an extra dowser machine. So yeah, another Team Plasma card for the Grunt engine as well, if you did want to go down that sort of route. Yeah, it's pretty solid. Chorus is Team Plasma supporter too, so there's several things you can do that are good with it, but it's not usually something you play more than one of. Geneset decks in the next set will actually play this quite regularly to get their energy back, but you could even consider this in Lugia too, to recover the energy that you've discarded. Speaking of energy recovery, Superior Energy Retrieval is the thing that Blastoise and Black Kyurem was waiting for in order to just be absolutely absurd. You discard 2 cards from your hand, and then you put 4 basic energy from your discard pile into your hand. You cannot choose a card you discarded with the effect of this card. Same thing as what happened with the old energy retrieval and stuff. Yeah, this is literally a reprint of Super Energy Retrieval from Neo Genesis, and actually just got reprinted I think it was in Scarlet Violet base too, just got reprinted in the current TCG, which is very fun. Yeah, so Kyurem's attack that does 200 damage and discards free energy from the Kyurem obviously is very expensive to try and keep going turn after turn, but if you just get Superior Energy Retrieval, then you can recover all of the energy that you discarded. And you only generally need to do 200 3 times in a game, so yeah, it's pretty good. Real good. So yeah, we could have played Blastoise Black Kyurem last set with regular energy retrieval, but we'd have still had to find another energy every turn, which is a bit annoying. This just does it in 1 card. And the discard cost is kind of high, but we have a card in here that's going to mitigate that a little bit. Our very own Night Assailant, if you will. Team Plasma Badge is a tool that makes your Pokemon a Team Plasma Pokemon. That's all it does. It is a Team Plasma card in itself, once again, for the engine. But this means you can Chorus Machine to any Pokemon that you attach this to. That will come up next set when we get Virizion, and Tool Drop is a deck that actually exists. This being a tool really does help the Tool Drop deck as well. You do need 2 energy on that to actually get it going. So yeah, it does have uses. It's very specific, but there are situations where you do want to be that. Also, I guess if you put Deoxys down, this turns any of your Pokemon into fodder for, or like not fodder, but they get boosted by Deoxys. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, there's there's some stuff you can do with it. It's neat. Team Plasma Ball lets you search for a Team Plasma Pokemon, put it into hand. That's all it does, but that's more than enough, really. The problem, again, I mentioned this in the previous set, but the problem is that Team Plasma Pokemon are only higher stage evolutions, so that's neat. Like, getting Plasma Klinklang would be great, for example, but you can't get Klink or Klang with it, so it's really good in the basic decks. Obviously, it lets you get Deoxys and stuff like that. It doesn't specify non-EX, so you can get Thundurus or Deoxys or any of those sorts of ones with it. So that's really, really good. But if you're playing an evolution deck, it's going to be a hard time using this. And then we have our ace specs, which are Life Dew and Rock Guard. Two tool-based ones this time round. And they're both kind of cool. Rock Guard is the less useful one. It's a ridiculously souped up Rocky Helmet. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is your active, damaged by an opponent's attack, put 6 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Does have to be active, so that's a problem. Tool Scrapper, of course, gets rid of it, but not every deck plays a lot of Tool Scrapper, so I guess that's a thing. And yeah, the main problem is if it goes to the bench, then it doesn't work. So yeah. Life Dew is a very interesting one. Despite Tool Scrapper, this is still worth it. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize cards. No wonder you can only play 1 of this, right? Like, Rock Guard, yeah, this damage is insane, so I guess it kind of makes sense why it's 1 odd per deck. But Life Dew is really where it's at. This sees the most play in Sableye Garbodor decks, where if you put this on a Sableye, then the opponent doesn't take a prize for it. If you put this on an EX, the opponent only takes 1 prize, so this can force 7 prize games in like EX only decks. Most of those don't really exist though, because Sigilif is a bit too much of a problem for them. But yeah, also you could put this on a Garbodor, and it has even less incentive to get KO'd at that point. Very cool. As for the rest of the EXs, I believe they all actually do have full arts in this set. Heatran EX is not very good, but it's a fire type Plasma EX. I guess it's technically more useful than Moltres, so that's not really saying a lot. Fire type, 180 HP, 3 energy to retreat, so heavy ball searchable, I suppose. Heat Boiler, for 1 fire, 2 colorless, does 60, but if Heatran is affected by a special condition, it does 60 more. So if you do get poisoned, you do, by a laser, and they don't kill it. 120 damage for 3 energy, that's pretty respectable, especially when Chorus Machine can accelerate some of it, but even so, Dynamite Press for 2 fire, 2 colorless only does 80, which is disgusting, but if it has any plasma energy attached to it, then it does 10 more for every damage counter that's on the opponent's Pokemon, like the defending Pokemon. So it's not even a rage-based thing, which would have probably been at least a bit interesting. To do knockout numbers, you don't need a lot of damage actually. You would need, so on a 180 HP Pokemon, you do an 80 base, and effectively plus 20 for like every every damage tick from there. So you need 5 damage counters on them, so that you would do 130. That's not really too realistic, to be honest. So it doesn't even hit good numbers in the end. The only reason you could even consider this is because it's fire type, but it doesn't even use double colorless energy very well, just like the Moltres doesn't, so it's really bad. Latias is interesting. It's a 160 HP EX, which is on the frail side, like the same as Ho-Oh that way. 1 energy retreat, it's a dragon type, so it's dragon weak. And Barrier Break is a really bad attack. 1 fire, 1 psychic, 1 colorless to do 70. It's not affected by any effects at the very least, so you can use it to go through Safeguard Pokemon. And I think that's where this is best, to be honest, because Bright Down, its ability, prevents all effects of attacks, including damage, done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon with abilities. Most decks will have enough ways around this. The Plasma deck in itself is like Thundurus, Kyurem as its attackers, right? But this does blank things like Lugia, like Snorlax. It can blank the Safeguard Pokemon and actually break through them, which is interesting. And yeah, Darkrai doesn't hit it, so there are some decks that do get messed up quite a bit by this, but there are just too many that don't. And now Blastoise decks have got Black Kyurem, they also have something that doesn't have an ability, so yeah. Speaking of things that are outclassed in that deck, Latios EX is a 170 HP one EX Pokemon Dragon type, 2 energy, 2 retreat, and it's basically just worse Black Kyurem EX. Mark Flight is a little better, 1 Psychic, 1 colorless to do 40 instead of 3 colors to do 60, but it also prevents the opponent from retreating next turn. Corner based attacks are very devastating when they pull off, so definitely noteworthy. And then 1 water, 1 psychic, 1 colorless, it does 150, and you have to discard every energy on this Pokemon. So it has the same discard free energy basically as what Black Kyurem does, except it discards with 1 lower attachment, but it also does 50 less damage, and that means you need to play Laser Verbank in a deck that can't really afford to play Laser Verbank. It's just not worth it. 150 would, is fine, but not on a discard-free energy guy, so yeah. Then there's Thundurus EX. I actually really like this card, to be honest. It's not the most standard Pokemon to play, but there are versions of Plasma that you could play that have this as a mainstay. 180 HP, 2 energy to retreat. It's lightning weak, but so weak to Thundurus is annoying, but it's resistant to Landorus, so that's always cool. Competes with Lugia in terms of the main slot, so take that as you will. But it kind of does okay at it. Windfall for 1 colorless shuffles your hand into your deck and draws 6. How many times have you dead drawn at the start of the game and been like, man, I wish I could just get to my supporters or something, and I just don't have anything going, right? This is a thing that you could use to get going. We have used this kind of attack before. It's not bad. And then Jet Blast for 4 colorless energy does only 60, which is miserable, but for every plasma energy that's on this Pokemon, you do 30 more damage. So if you get 2 plasma on this, it's 120 for 2 plasma double colorless, which is the same as Lugia, except it doesn't discard, so that's kind of neat. Can't take extra prizes though, which is a bit annoying. But if you do manage to get all 4 plasma energy on the same Thundurus, it's doing 180, which is one-shot numbers. It's colorless, so you could use the Spertia City Gym to buff it up if you want, and there's an Umbreon in this set we'll look at which can give it extra HP too, so you could do tank stuff with this, and it's kind of fun. I should also note there's a couple of promos that actually do matter this time. These were pretty hard to get hold of back in the day, and there's not a lot of experimentation with them, but Landorus in particular is just about the only fighting type that you can play in Team Plasma, so it's noteworthy if you want the fighting type to hit opposing Thundurus EX. 110 HP, Water Weak, so weak to Kyurem is a bit annoying, but Water Weak, Lightning Resistant, 2 Energy Retreat, it's kind of in the middle of everything here between all the Landorus stuff. Extrasensory is the main attack. For 1 fighting and 1 colorless, you do 20 damage, but 30 more if you have the same number of cards in your hand as the opponent. So 50 baseline isn't a lot, but when you're hitting for weakness, because fighting is an exceptional weakness to hit still, if you can hit for weakness and you also have like a Deoxys or 2 down, you can start hitting some really crazy numbers with this, and that's mostly where it comes in from. Rock Tomb for 2 fighting, 2 colorless, very expensive attack here. 90 and prevent the opponent retreating next turn. I mean, that's a really good effect, and I suppose if you can catch the opponent on a Keldeo that they can't like rush out, that's not terrible, but it's very expensive to get that set up. If your deck is super heavy into Blend and Prism, you could probably do it. So there are toolbox versions of Plasma that you could use for this, and maybe we could try it at some point, but don't expect to see it from us here. But the noteworthy thing is this was just extremely hard to get hold of, so there wasn't a lot of testing with it, and not a lot of decks in the format that would use it. Especially on PTCGO, this was almost impossible to get hold of. Darkrai is the other one here, a very cool looking card, this one. It's a 110 HP Team Plasma guy, Dark type obviously, so it competes with Absol and competes pretty poorly with it if I'm honest. But it's got a hit and run attack, which is something we haven't seen very often in this era. 1 dark and 1 colorless to do 30, and you may switch this Pokemon with one of your bench. That's cool. I mean, Plasma Energy obviously works to Chorus Machine to this thing as well. You could Dart Patch too, so there's some good good synergy with that. Dark Hole does not destroy all monsters on the field, unfortunately, but for 2 dark and 2 colorless, it does 90, and if you flip heads, you put them to sleep. Not a very good attack, if we're honest with you here. 110 HP also is a bit vulnerable, but at least against enemy plasma, you're not likely to die in one hit, so there is that. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. The Absol, I think, does it way better, though, so yeah, we'll just use that instead. On to the set proper. I did say the Beedrill was terrible. Basically, if you've got no damage on the Beedrill, then it does 60 Confuse and Poison for a single energy. That's cool, I suppose, but, you know, 120 HP stage 2, max potion is fine, but it's not going to be that great, so yeah. Execute, not Executor, Execute is the main notable one here. We'll talk about Executor as well, but it's mostly this guy. 30 HP basic, obviously terrible, Laser Bank, Night Spear, Night Spear bench damage, or Hammerhead, Raiden Knuckle even. A lot of stuff will just kill this outright on turn 1. But you don't want to have it on the bench anyway, because it's only really here for propagation. Once during your turn before you attack, if this Pokemon is in your discard pile, you may put this Pokemon into your hand. Fun fact, once it goes out of the discard pile and into your hand, it forgets that it went back to the hand with its ability. So this is actually as many times as you like during your turn. Put it into the thing. It's a very stupid ruling, and it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever to the Yu-Gi-Oh nuts out there, but this is not a hard once per turn. So yeah, this is the cornerstone of the deck I am going to play this round, the Weavile Execute deck, but we'll get to the Weavile later on to show why. Executor really doesn't do anything too special. It's 100 HP, so it's not heavy level ball searchable. It's 2 retreat, so it's not heavy ball searchable. And blockade is the only thing noteworthy here. For 1 colorless, you do 10 damage. But the opponent can't play supporter cards from their hand next turn. That's the thing. If you can lock them out of playing supporters and they can't actually get going, sure, but it's 10 damage, dude. Even with Muscle Belt coming out in like 3 sets time, not happening. Sceptile, not very good, unfortunately. Leafeon is pretty neat. For 100 HP, so just out of heavy ball, lovable search range even. 2 retreat, again, not heavy ball searchable. The 2 retreat is actually okay for the evolution line here, though, as we'll see. And Energy Crush is the main thing. This is good against Seismitoad later on, as its main claim to fame. But even now, it can be good against the right deck. 1 colorless energy, 20 damage times the number of energy attached to all of the opponent's Pokemon. Neat. So if they're on a deck that does splurge a lot of energy out, or accelerates energy as well, then it can be pretty good. Would be exceptional against Keldeo if it wasn't for the fact that Black Kyurem EX kind of is the way to play that deck now. So they don't tend to keep a lot of energy in play, so that's a bit of a shame. Leaf Blade for, you know, grass double colorless if you ever have the grass to attach to it. 60 damage, if heads 20 more. Not even a good like number for it, to be honest, but hey, sometimes it might come up. Flareon, the meme deck of this round, but it's pretty slick, not gonna lie. Again, 100 HP, fire type this time, obviously, because it's Flareon. 2 energy retreat, so same stats as Leafeon that way. Heat Tackle is fine. 1 fire, 2 colorless, 90, does 10 to itself. You might use that early game, because the real attack you're wanting here is Vengeance. 20 damage for a double colorless energy, 10 more for every Pokemon in your discard pile. There is no hard limit on this. So if you get 16 Pokemon in the discard pile, that's 180 damage for a DC. It does happen. There's a couple of ways you can build it, but there's a very funny version with Cofagrigus from this set that we'll talk about later. And yeah, it's stupid, but it's very funny. Chandelure is just a card in the wrong time period, unfortunately. It's a Plasma Fire type, it's 130 HP, stage 2, so not the bulkiest thing out there. 2 energy to retreat, once again, this stupid number keeps coming up. It's here not for Absorb Life to fire a colorless 70 heal 30 from this Pokemon, bleh, who cares. It's here for Flare Navigate. Once during your turn before you attack, you may search your deck for a Fire Energy card, attach it to one of your Pokemon. If you do, put 1 damage counter on that Pokemon. That's an easy bit to forget, to be honest. This is kind of like Typhlosion Prime, except it goes from the deck instead of the discard, which is arguably better. Probably isn't actually better though. I think I'd rather have the Typhlosion right now. Yeah, search your deck for an energy is pretty slick. Just, it's a once per turn, you put a damage counter on the thing. It is once per Chandelure, but good luck getting multiples of this out, right? And if you are, I think you can do better than this thing. We also still have Emboar in the format, and Emboar is more searchable, I think, as well, because Heavy Ball is a thing. I don't know. There's a couple of positives for it, but it's just outclassed, I think. There's a Reshiram in this set as well. Its main, like this and the Zekrom, their main thing is Fusion Flare and Fusion Bolt, respectively. If you have the other one on the bench, then it does 120 for type plus 3 colorless. And that's really it. The first attacks are pretty bad, so yeah, like 120 is solid, but it takes a lot to get that going. Kingdra is down the bottom, so we'll have to talk about that later. Vaporeon is kind of just a weaker version of Bouffalon, but it does hit weakness on Landorus, so there is that. 110 HP, so a little bit bulkier than the other EVs. 2 retreat still, Grass weak, not Lightning weak. So that's noteworthy. A lot of water Pokemon are Grass weak in this era, actually. Kind of funny. Refreshing Rain is bad, don't bother. 30 heal from each of your Pokemon, meh. I guess it comes up sometimes against Hammerheads and stuff, but it's just not that good. And then Gold Breaker, it's the Bouffalon attack. For 1 water and the colorless, you do 30, plus 50 if the opponent is an EX. I guess the only thing is you could boost this with Deoxys, but it's 80 on a stage 1, considering Bouffer was 120 on a stage 0s on a basic. This just doesn't seem very good. Again, the only thing is it hits Landorus for weakness, and I mean Landorus does terrorize EVs, so I guess you could justify it, but it's really bad. Quagsire takes less damage if it, from any attack, which is funny, but not like very good, so there. Glaceon is the main support, I suppose, for the EV stuff. The retreat cost of each of your Team Plasma Pokemon in play is 2 less. It's a 90 HP searchable, levelable searchable, so that's always fun. And yeah, Free Zone is pretty good. Icy Wind is bad, don't care, but Free Zone lets you retreat all of your stuff easier, and that can be quite nice. So yeah, it's a nice one-off considering most of the evolutions are like 2 energy retreat. At least the good ones are. Seismitoad is a funny meme deck, 140 HP, stage 2, 3 energy retreat, and it is a Team Plasma Pokemon, so very, very searchable. Splashing Turn is too expensive. Yeah, it's a good hit and run move, but for 4 energy it's not. Seismic Punch is what you want here. 30 to the active for a DCE, and then 30 to every bench Pokemon in play. That sounds really bad, but there is a way of stopping bench damage in this set, which counterintuitively also means this is bad if the opponent plays that card, but whatever. Don't think either of these are any good. No, Cryo Freeze is too easy to get around. We talked about the Kyurem. Electrode is pretty decent. It's 90 HP, so it's lovable searchable, and once during your turn you may draw until you have 4 cards in hand. It's certainly not as good as like Bibarel nowadays, and it's definitely not as good as what Claydol used to be, or even like Porygon 2. We've had better versions of this, but it's levelable, searchable, and draw until 4 in an era with such powerful supported draw is fine. Kind of worth noting at the very least. Lantern isn't amazing, but it will be okay as a counter meta thing in XY base. For this 90 HP, so levelable, searchable Pokemon, for 1 lightning energy does 30 plus 30 if it's got a special energy attached. So slap a blend energy on this, and when Yveltal comes out, you can one-shot it with Silver Bangle. So yeah, I don't think Patrice doesn't really do anything, which is unfortunate. It looks pretty cool though. Yeah, the Zekrom is bad. There's a Nidoking and Queen in this set, but they are like the worst thing in the world. The Nidoqueen does absolutely nothing. The Nidorina and the Nidorino both have 3 retreats for some reason. I guess you can Heavy Ball Search them, but like, really? And then Nidoking even, for a double colorless, does 20 plus 40 for each Nidoqueen on your bench. It's the opposite of Boyfriends from Jungle, but it's so bad. Like, how many stage 2s have you got to get out for this to do anything reasonable? I think the answer is 3. If you get 2, it does 100. 2 Nidoqueen, but then you've got to get this in play as well. Just like, the boff. Mr. Mime is the card that works with the Seismitoad. Prevent all bench damage done to your guys. It doesn't stop from just the opponent, it would stop earthquake-based attacks as well. We just don't have very many of them, but it would stop them, so that's cool. And yeah, it's a psychic type, 70 HP searchable dude. It's only got 1 energy retreat, so that's kind of alright. And yeah, it blocks bench damage. So no more Night Spear chips, no more Frost Spear chips, no more Hammerhead chips. Really should have been Hammer Spear by the naming convention, right? But whatever, it's really, really good. And it also blocks this thing, Espeon. It's noteworthy, it's 90 HP, so it's levelable, searchable, blah blah blah. It's noteworthy because Shadow Ball is the same attack that was on Drifblim C in, or Drifblim GL, I think it was. Yeah, it was like Fantina's one, wasn't it? The SP Pokemon. For 1 Psychic Energy, it snipes 40 to one of the opponent's Pokemon. But, unlike every other snipe move, you apply weakness and resistance to the bench Pokemon. So, you could snipe a Mewtwo for 80, which is kind of neat, so yeah. Sableye was actually a rare in this set, and it is one of the worst cards of all time, basically. Like, this is just, I have to bring it up because it's the same thing as like Supreme Victor's Arcanine and stuff like that, where it's just unbelievably terrible. Like, this would have been okay maybe in the base set, because Shadow Cage is actually kind of a nice effect here, like blocking retreat, but come on, dude. Metagross unfortunately isn't amazing for the same reason other plasma searches aren't great. It's a stage 2 for 1, but like once per turn during your turn you may search your deck for a Team Plasma card, but you can only use 1 of these per turn, so there's not even any point in getting multiples out. Its attack is worthless, and again, Team Plasma card, yeah, that can get supporters and stuff, so that's not like the worst, but as far as Pokemon search goes, it's really terrible, so yeah. There's the artwork for regular Deoxys, just in case you want that. Carvagrigus, I did mention this with a Flareon. This is the very funny meme deck of the round. 6 feet under. It's, well, first off, it's 100 HP, it's 2 retreats, so it's not as searchable as some of the other stuff, but we're used to that in this deck. We could just play Plasma Ball in this one, I suppose. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may knock this Pokemon out. If you do, put 3 damage counters on the opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. So, like, it's a really terrible payout, right? To give the opponent the prize and then just be like, I'm only going to put 3 damage counters down on you. But it does add Pokemon to the discard pile, as well as putting damage on the opponent so that you don't have to do 180 to them for vengeance. If you haven't played your supporter yet, N can also help there. The Ditto from Boundaries Crossed works really well in this deck, because you go Ditto on the bench and then just like Yamask, 2 Carvagrigus, 6 feet under, that's suddenly 3 Pokemon that you put in the discard pile. That works out a bit better. If we had the Unknown tools from Gen 4, that could actually be a pretty reasonable threat. Like, slap an Unknown tool on this as well would be pretty good. As it stands, it's a fun meme, and it can work against 2 prize stuff, but yeah, I don't know. Umbreon is neat. It has 1 line of text on it. Each of your Team Plasma Pokemon in play gain 20 HP. This stacks and also includes itself. It is 100 HP naturally, so not level ball searchable, but whatever. 1 energy to retreat, surprisingly light. Umbreon does tend to have a low-ish retreat cost, so that's kind of cool. And yeah, Darkness Fang, Dark Double Color 70, whatever. Might come up sometimes, but yeah, it's cool. It's effectively 120 HP, and it gives your Plasma guys more. So if you use this with the Tornadus, then that Tornadus gets real big and really, really hard to KO. So that's fun. When you can make it so the opponent's Black Kyurem EX does not actually KO your Pokemon in 1 hit, you know you're doing something good. Weavile is kind of neat. It's 90 HP, so it is levelable searchable. Critical for the deck because Execute is searchable as well. Hail is fine. It does 10 to each of the opponent's Pokemon. That can set some math numbers up if you have to, but generally you don't want to do that because it's a liability to leave this in the active slot. Vilify is what you really want here. It's one of my favorite decks of the format, even if it is a bit difficult to get it going all the time. 1 dark, 1 colorless, 30 damage for every Pokemon that you discard from your hand. So the Execute can come back to the hand if you get all 4 of them discarded. That's a solid 120 every turn. If you discard extra Pokemon, you can one-shot EXs as well, and that's how this deck tends to win. Problem is it gets outboxed very easily at the start of games. It's super easy to pressure this down, especially because it takes 2 energy to do this attack. That's hard to keep up. So yeah, like Chorus Machine doesn't work super well because the Weavile itself is the only thing you can attach that to. The Dart Patch is nice, but then you've got to get the energy discarded as well. The Sneasel's got 70 HP at least, so it takes a tiny bit of effort to KO it with a Lando, but it's still not amazing there either. So yeah, it's tough. But it's a fun deck, and that's sometimes all that you really need. Absol sometimes goes in there as well, often goes into the regular TDK stuff as well, as like a one-off tech here. It's 100 HP, it's only 1 retreat, which is really nice. And Fearsome Shadow is a pretty bad attack, you don't tend to use that. The opponent just reveals their hand for Dark Double Colorless to do 60, who cares? It's all about Mind Jack here. For a Dark and Colorless, so 1 Chorus Machine and 1 Prism Energy, you do 20, plus 20 for each of the opponent's bench. We've just noted how many like Deoxys and stuff like that you want down. Bench sitters are really useful there, and Mind Jack just lets you do up to 120 damage for 2 energy, which is really good. If you focus on this thing, you can play Dark Claw, and that would let you also do extra damage with that. And it's Dart Patch compatible if you want to go that sort of route. You can use Deoxys too. You can make this thing hit the numbers. It's really nice. So yeah, it's good against opposing Plasma decks, and that's usually where you would see it. Crocodile kind of looks neat, but it's really bad, so who cares? The Dino stuff in here is not very good. The Bishop's not very good. There's a Steelix that does like not a lot of damage really, considering how much energy it takes, but it's got 150 HP, so it's a pretty big stage 1, right? It's no Wailord, but it's close enough, I guess. Mobile Appreciation, it's not very good, but it's got big old bite, so, you know, it's there, I suppose. Kind of cool looking, so there is that. Dragonite is interesting. Some of the dragon stuff is kind of cool. Dragonite is probably best next set when Silver Bangle comes in, so you can 2-shot EXs. But 150 HP, 3 energy retreat. You are probably playing this with Garbodor, so Heavy Ball is definitely a good part of the deck. So there is that. And its main thing is Deafen. For 3 colorless energy, you do only 60 damage, so it's a little bit short in the numbers you want. But the opponent can't play items during their next turn. This is just a bigger version of Zebstrika, and it's very funny and very fitting that Dragonite is the one that does this, because if you remember back to Gen 3, Manectric EX was basically what Zebstrika is now. That was the exact same thing then. And then the other evolution that did the whole like block attack thing, block item thing, was Dragonite EX. And it had the same attack, I think, as well, actually. It just was, like, different cost on it. I think it was Grass Color... Was it Grass Colors? I think it was Grass Colorless, and it did 40. So, yeah, it was a Grass type, being the Delta species stuff. So, yeah, very fitting, I suppose, that this comes in again. If you use Garbodor as well and stop the opponent from having abilities, they're probably going to have a very hard time against this. So, yeah, it's just difficult to set up, is the main thing. But if you get it going, oh my god, is it obnoxious. Thankfully, the Dratini and the Dragonair are very frail, so actually setting this up can be pretty difficult. It's also not like a Team Plasma Pokemon or anything, so I don't know how you get the third energy attached on this, but oof, it's annoying. Heal Wing's never going to come up really, but Grass Lightning, Double Colorless 90, heal 30 from this Pokemon. I suppose if you need that extra 30 damage, you might get it going. I don't know. Kingdra is mostly waiting for Greninja actually in XY base, but it's kind of cool. It's got 140 HP. I guess you could 101 this in Blastoise and it might be okay for the first attack. 140 HP, 1 retreat, dragon typing, so bit different in terms of the stuff there. Tri-Bullet for 1 water does 30 to 3 of the opponent's Pokemon. This is Registeel's Triple Laser, but on a 1 price stage 2 for a single energy. That's actually pretty good. I mean, I really enjoyed playing stuff like Empoleon and Garchomp, where it was like stage 2s, but you only needed 1 energy, so that was kind of fun. but Dragon Vortex is probably the more interesting attack here actually. For one colorless, it does 20 for every water and lightning energy in your discard pile. You then shuffle all of those cards back into your deck. So long as you have some draw out still, this can actually be really solid as a recovery tool. And the neat thing, when Greninja comes out, yeah, it's multiple stage 2s you've got to set up, but the fun thing with Greninja is that it discards water to do damage counters. So a little bit of future tech there, I guess. I might try it out because that's one of the more interesting things from that set. So yeah, could be cool. There's a Raticate here that lets you put like Team Plaza Pokemon, Trainer, and Energy from the discard into the hand, but it's a 70 HP stage 1 that's weak to fighting. At least we have a 40 HP Rattata now for that Super Fang Raticate. For the like 0 players that are ever going to play it. Both of the Eevees are kind of decent in here in different situations. If you only have one type of evolution, the Growl one is probably better, but even then, Signs of Evolution can still be good, so there is that. For one colorless, do search your deck for 3 Pokemon of different types that evolve from Eevee. So if you're playing like the Umbreon, Flareon, Leafeon, or say Umbreon, Glaceon, and an attacker maybe, that's pretty solid. Just don't try and search Glaceon and Vaporeon at the same time, it won't work. And that's pretty much it. Kecleon lets you copy... Oh, this was actually funny against Dragon types, right. Kecleon lets you copy the opponent's type, basically, and then you copy one of their attacks if you can pay for it. So it was a very funny potential tech against Dragon types in Dragon-like decks. Think one prize Black Kyurem would be very funny, right? But most Pokemon are not too, like, outside of Mewtwo, I suppose Mewtwo would also be weak to itself, so that could be kind of fun. But Mewtwo just kills us with a DC anyway, so I don't know. It's fine. Copying the opponent's type if they're weak to themselves is pretty funny. Mostly is just against Dragon types though. And then, yeah, Staraptor can shuffle the opponent back into the deck for 4 energy, but it's really just never going to come up. This set is really cool. You can see just how long we've been speaking on stuff here. There's a lot of high power cards going on in this one, and it's going to make for a very interesting Worlds format. Thing is, like, it's funny because a lot of the stuff is really strong in here, but actually building some of the decks is easier said than done. I've been having a really hard time like making the Weavile Execute stuff work, but I think I'm just getting hosed out by more consistent options. So, you know, not every deck that I enjoy is going to be the like most consistent thing in the world, but oh man, this attack is so fun to declare. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed yourselves. Very interesting set coming up with this here, and yeah, I don't know exactly how we're going to proceed for the next month because Pepper's basically not going to be here, so I don't know. We haven't really spoken about that yet. Maybe we'll just mess around with some of the stuff in the upcoming sets. Maybe we will actually just continue. I don't know what he wants to do, but we'll see. Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, take care.